This is the place where the newness separates itself from the oldness. This is the place where the ways and the influences becomes ineffective of the old ways. And this is where relief is brought because a new experience have been embarked upon. This is time to deviate fully and completely without hesitation when God says move, to depart from the former paths, to get on the right path immediately. Jump into the path. You must be willing to jump into the waters of change when the waters of change presents itself immediately. I'm saying it 3 times, immediately, because I want you to get this in your spirit, because God has been talking to some of you about change coming forth in your life. And I want your spirit man to be fully receptive to receive the move of God over your life. Some of you, God has already shown you who you should be a part of in ministry, what church you need to be a part of. Some pastors that are haven't yet launched out, he has already shown you that you are a part of that ministry and are attached to that person. But because of apprehension in your timing and your thought processes and your pattern, because it doesn't look like what you thought it should look like. But God is leading you to a cave, and in a cave, the levels of comfort that you're used to are done away with. Because God is trying to retrain you to show you his ways are not your ways. Your expectations are not his expectations. Your level of comfort and your provisions aren't his levels of comfort and provisions. Do you think that me doing this is comfortable? That's not comfortable. But this is the will of God concerning me in Christ Jesus towards you. And some of you out there that may be in this area, God may have already shown you that you're attached to me to be your pastor. But because it's presented to you in a different light, you're not fully understanding and comprehending how to go about it, how to make right decisions. But this is a prayer that is fully in your lap, that God himself wants you to pray, and he will speak to your spirit, and whatever he tells you to do will agree with your heart, because it will be something that will not escape your thought processes, and you will not have a level or a sense of fulfillment until you yield and submit and say that this is the will of my Father for my life. I must go down to the cave, which is where my furtherance and my existence will be for such a time as this. Now listen, this is time to deviate from the familiar path. This is the time to find out new methodologies. This is the way to find out new theological theories about God. Yes, we don't theorize God, but God will give us theology that will cause us to understand that we must be driven to our knees. And in this theology that is driven by neology, then we will get a better understanding of his existence as to who he is and how he functions and how he operates and how he wants us to live, breathe, and move in him. And we might as well not move at all unless we move in him. This is the place where dead things die out. This is the place where old thoughts and egos are killed. This is the place where you are fully committed to following God. There is no pretense in your spirit. There is no illusion of grandeur. This is the place where our commonality, all things become common unto all men, because all men are in the same situations together. We're in the cave together. Escape means that the word literally means in the Hebrew text, leap out. This is a place where escape means I just don't run out, I don't walk out, I escape from an imprisonment or confinement. But this is the place where I leap out of my mindset, my thoughts, my will, my desire, my ways, my perception. This is a place where I leap out of even the people that are around me, thought processes and their wordings of negativity that tell me that not to change, you're crazy, why are you doing this? Just by doing this, people have already told me that you must be out of your mind. But let me tell you, this, in essence, the same as for you, will be a complete leap of faith out of everything that you know to follow God and to move forward. This is the place, listen, this is the place. The word also means, or the term escape in the Bible means this is also, it means to emit a spark. A spark. We all know what a spark is. A spark is a flame that is shot out in a very small element, but yet it is powerful enough to start a forest fire. Hallelujah, Jesus. This means that even if you will walk out by faith, that death that has come into you, God would strike you to the point that now you will have a spark of life in you. You will have life in your mortal body. You will have life in your step. You will have life in what you communicate. You will have life in everything that you do. And people will be able to see the spark that is in you and in your life. So David slipped away from his pursuers and from the peril that he was that he was engaged in or that he was in. He avoided capture or even punishment of Saul. And he says, ain't nobody got time for this. And some of you may have seen the video of a woman on YouTube that had experienced a fire. And she said, ain't nobody got time for this. You don't have time to get locked into the status quo of your spiritual existence. This is time for you to break free from the status quo of your life and your relationship and the lack of understanding and knowing something fresh and different from God. Where God is wanting to reveal himself to you in a greater measure beyond that which you're receiving now. It means also to elude successfully that you're looking to get that spark back, and that spark is going to cause you to be able to see. Now, the place or the name of Adullam isn't important to the message that we're talking about today, but I want you to understand this. When everybody heard where David had gone to the cave of Adullam, let's go back to verse 1. It says, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren, listen, when his brethren, his natural brethren, or the brethren that he served with, men or whomever, and his father's household, his family heard it, they all went thither to him. They all went down to him. Now listen, this is the part where God is trying to get you out of. And this is the part where God is trying to get you to experience something new with him. He says this in verse 2, and I want you to listen carefully as I read it again. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented, gathered themselves unto him, and he became captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. So let's go into that. So everyone that heard, this is the situational experience of life where it causes your ears to become attentive to anything that would bring the changes or the chances of hope. That's what my ears will hear, even in the distortion of excessive sound, noise, talk, music, etc., and everything else that is going on in the atmosphere around me. This is where my ears become perked up to a glimmer of hope to hear the words of hope, that there is hope and change to be had. When everything else around you is negative, when everything around you is dying or dead, your ears become attentive because you're looking for a glimmer of hope or a rope to pull you out of the places of despair. It means your ears must be clear and attentive to hear what the Spirit of God is speaking directly to you. And you could be in a crowded room and God can speak directly to you and no one else hears it but you. And God is speaking to you that it's time for change in your life. Hear the word of the Lord unto you, that He is talking to you. He is beckoning you. He has been talking to some of you in your dreams. He has been talking to some of you through other persons that have the word of the Lord and the Spirit of the Lord concerning your life. He has even spoke to you in ways that you watch television shows and you've heard repetitive phrases over and over again. But when you hear those phrases are keen to your ear and your ear perks up. Why? Because God used various sources and resources and people to speak to you. It was a wino, an elderly man that was broke down and poor, and an elderly woman that told me when they came to me that God had called you to ministry over 20 years ago. Didn't know them from Adam, but I already knew that God had a purpose for my life. And I've thought and assumed that it was ministry, but I didn't know. But yet they were confirming what God had already spoken. I would be out with a friend of mine, a buddy of mine. We were working together, both of us in suit and ties and looking professional. And without fail, they would always point me out. And he would always say, why do you always get a word from the Lord from people in unsuspecting places of unsuspecting character? And I get nothing. I said, I have no control over that. But their wordings were true to this very day. God will use whomever He will use to tell you that this is His will concerning you, to get your attention. It's not so much so the words they're speaking, it's the presentation of those that are bringing that should get your attention, that this is unusual. Why is God sending a derelict my way? Why is God sending someone that I perceive to be a bump my way? And why is God sending me in unusual places and unusual circumstances? Why am I always watching this man, bald-headed man on YouTube or other social media sites? Why? Because I've got a word from the Lord for you, that God is calling you to greater things. If you would open up your ears and hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying unto you. It's time for change. It's time to come to the cave. And if you really understand that what the cave with purpose is for, this is the place where people of like heart, of like passion, of like desire, these are the people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And when you get your fill of being sick and tired, of being sick and tired, then you're moved to action. And the thing is, many of us get there beyond the date and time that we should arrive at that destination. Some of us are drowning in discontentment. Some of us are drowning and being sick and tired, but we still haven't moved. Listen. Float to the top and get out of the tank, because sharks are encircling you, and what they're about to do is to bring destruction to you. You've got to move out of situations when God gives you the ability to move. Now is the time to move out of the situation.